Welcome to the training on open meetings provided by the Utah Association of Public Charter Schools. Because almost all our school funds come from public dollars, we have a requirement to make sure that decisions are made in a transparent way. While most people envision the public sitting in the audience on a regular basis, that is rarely the case. Most often, the public only becomes interested when you do something they don't agree with. People start saying that they weren't included in the decision-making process. Individuals and reporters start looking retroactively for signs that the rules weren't followed. If you aren't paying attention along the way, you think everything is fine, and then all of a sudden you have a mess on your hands. Do not get complacent. Make sure you are constantly following the Open and Public Meetings Act. The state of Utah has outlined specific rules of behavior for public entities. Following these rules can be time-consuming and slow your ability to make quick decisions. Remember, school boards typically don't make quick decisions. They are slow and deliberate by design. Your administrator is the one dealing with specific issues who needs to be empowered to solve problems quickly. Recently, many public entities have been in the news for not following the Open and Public Meetings Act. This is a hot topic item. State auditors and the state charter school board staff can audit you at any time to make sure you are in compliance. While the Open and Public Meetings Act is very lengthy and detailed, the essence is simple. Do the public's business in public. The most frequent school board violations of this occur in two ways. First is online collaboration. We have wonderful tools available to help us communicate. However, the most widely used methods do not include the public. Email and online collaboration in particular can get you into trouble. It is fine for one board member to send out an informational email to the entire board to communicate something that happened. However, as soon as one individual clicks reply all, you now have a conversation out of the public eye with a quorum of board members. Please train your board members to never click reply all. If you are sending an email to the entire board, BCC or blind carbon copy the members instead. It prevents you all from being able to reply all. Google Docs seems like a great place to edit policy documents. However, it is a similar problem. With a quorum of board members editing and making comments on a document, you are now having a discussion out of the public eye. Be very careful about these types of communication that are used routinely in typical business life. They are not appropriate for public bodies. Having your board set up clearly defined assignments and committees, you can have those committees of less than a quorum of board members tackle these problems using whatever tools they decide, and then report back to the full board in a public board meeting. This will keep you compliant and allow you to use efficient tools. Second is chance meetings. It is not uncommon to have a quorum of board members run into each other at a school carnival, concert, staff Christmas party. The likelihood that some topic relating to the school will come up is high. Even if it doesn't, someone will assume that is what you were talking about. For this reason, be very aware of how many board members are in the group and how many constitute a quorum. If you reach that number, someone needs to walk away. You think it will be awkward, but the board members know why you're doing it. Other public entities have been called out by the media for even having a quorum at different public events. If you know there is such an event coming up and you want everyone to be in attendance without a problem, for back to school night as an example, notice the meeting the way you would a board meeting. You will also need to record the session and post a very basic minutes. It is a great tool for parents who can't attend to stay involved and hear what they missed. Many people get caught up on the details and technicalities of the code. In sections, it does state that chance meetings or meetings where no action is taken don't qualify. While that technically may be true, good luck explaining it to a reporter. Public opinion doesn't accept technicalities. One city council tried to make this the case for an event promoted on Facebook to hear from a state senator representing the area. Since one city council member had invited them all to attend, it wasn't a chance meeting. Questions about their city in particular came up in the discussion. Quite a lot of accusations and finger-pointing played out during election season. If you have to resort to technicalities, you really aren't embracing the idea of do the public's business in public. All board members should be using school email accounts for school business. Despite the fact that it may be more convenient to use your personal account that you're familiar with or is already set up on your phone, use school email accounts. Board members are subject to the Utah Governmental Records and Management Act, or GRAMA. All communication can be requested by a member of the public at any time. Lawyers and reporters love to use this method to obtain information. Your emails must be maintained and not regularly deleted. Even after you cease being a board member, your emails are still able to be requested. By using a school email account, your emails are easily saved, accessed, searched, and accessible. After you've left your position, staff can still access them if need be. Hillary Clinton is well known for having problems when Congress tried to request her records. She made excuses about why she was using a private email account instead of a government account. She claimed that she deleted emails relating to her daughter's wedding that weren't relevant to government investigations. Not many people believed her story. Charter school board members have had their emails requested even when the issue does not relate to their school. A few years ago, one school uniform vendor was suing another, and lawyers requested records from various schools to see how one vendor was pitching his product. Be very aware of what you put in writing and know anyone might see it eventually. Personnel items relating to specific individuals should not be emailed between board members for this reason. There is a possibility you can claim that the email has protected information to try and shield them from GRAMA, but I have not heard of a case where this has been done successfully in schools. Individual phone calls are preferred. Before you hold a board meeting, the board chair should draft an agenda. It does not need to be fancy, but you must have certain information. You need to list the date, time, and place of the meeting. It should normally be held at the school if the building has been built, but exceptions are allowed on occasional basis. If you are going to allow electronic participation for the meeting, you need to post how the public can connect, which typically includes a phone number and passcode. Typical agenda items include previous meeting minutes, administration reports, committee reports, discussion items, and action items. Action items are things that you will hold a board vote on. Typically, they are items that have already been discussed in a previous meeting or committee. You don't want to bog down your meeting wordsmithing a policy or getting detailed input in a board meeting, or you will be there for hours. The board meeting is for final thoughts, minor corrections, and the vote. You can only hold a vote on items included in the action items portion of your meeting. Your agendas will usually look similar from meeting to meeting. However, they should not look exactly the same. A good rule of thumb is to pretend that the agenda is like a movie trailer. It should give a good idea of what to expect, and you shouldn't feel like you expected one movie and then watch something different. The Open and Public Meetings Act requires reasonable specificity as to the items discussed. For this reason, agendas should vary from one meeting to the next. If you are voting on specific policies, list the policy numbers and titles. If you are discussing specific school fees, state which ones and not just a blanket school fees, unless you are doing your annual acceptance of all fees. Stakeholders need to be able to read the agenda, see if there's an item they're passionate about, and decide if they want to come and hear the details of the discussion. If you use the same vague statements, people won't know what you plan to discuss. It is recommended that you add possible closed session and possible action from closed session to your agendas regularly. Many times, unexpected events will come up and necessitate a closed session and action. You will often cancel these portions of the meeting, but they are on the agenda in case you need them. Once you have your agenda, you need to post notice of the meeting. This needs to be done in 3 places, but can happen automatically. All schools should have at least 2 people that have poster access to pmn.utah.gov, which is the public meeting notice website for the state. There are instructions on that website to get this set up. You should have at least 1 board member as part of the 2 people. Do not have your only posters be school staff. If the board needs to call a meeting, they need to be able to do it without needing staff. When your school entity is set up on the PMN, there is a box you can check which automatically will notify newspapers of your choice to let them know when your meeting is. This will save you the effort of notifying the newspapers. This is one notice that can happen automatically. The PMN website is one place for your notice, the newspaper is your second, and the third is at the location of the meeting itself in a visible place accessible to the public. All three of these places must have notice of your meeting 24 hours in advance of the meeting's start time. Many schools like to also post on a school website. There is a way that stakeholders or the public can subscribe to your school on the PMN website, and they will automatically be emailed every time you post notice. This is a great thing to share with anyone who claims they weren't aware of your meetings. You are also required to post an annual schedule of your board meetings. They can change as needed depending on circumstance, but you should be holding consistent regular meetings so that people can make plans to attend. This should be posted on the PMN website. You can hold emergency meetings with less than 24 hours notice, but it must be for unforeseen circumstances. Examples would be that the school floods and you need to come up with a backup plan for classes, or a bank account signer has resigned unexpectedly and you need to remove them from the account. Forgetting to post is not an unforeseen circumstance. If that is the case, reschedule your meeting so that it can have 24 hours notice. During the meeting itself, you must have a quorum present before you can hold a vote. Do you know what number is defined in your bylaws for your school? If you are missing the required number to reach quorum, you can discuss non-action items while waiting for them to arrive. You can only vote on noticed action items. Just because something is listed on a different portion of the meeting does not mean you can vote on it. For many reasons, holding an electronic meeting, or one where people can call in instead of being in person, is very convenient. You are required to have an electronics meetings policy prior to holding an electronic meeting. Review Utah Code 52-4-507 to make sure your policy is in compliance. Online collaboration tools can complicate compliance, so be very careful when using them. When you hold an electronic meeting, you must include the details of how the public can connect to the call on your meeting notice. You also must have an anchor location. This means that someone must be in the location meetings are typically held. The location must have a way for the public to listen and possibly participate in the call. While this section of code is a bit outdated, imagine not everyone has a phone. You need to provide a way for them to access the meeting without having a phone or other device to connect to the meeting. They need to be able to walk into your primary meeting location, have someone there to have everything working, and participate without any more steps than they would have to if they were at a live meeting. Meetings closed to the public are allowed for very specific reasons. They include strategy sessions for pending or imminent litigation, purchase of real property, discussions on security measures, investigations of criminal conduct, and a few other items like water shares that don't relate to schools. The primary reasons schools would be in a closed session are to discuss the character, competence, or mental and physical health of an individual. This means you will need to be talking about one specific individual at a time. Do not allow your discussions to wander to other teachers in the same grade or a different topic. Your discussion must relate only to that individual. It is not allowed to interview a candidate for an elected position in a closed meeting. However, you could interview a job candidate in a closed session because it is about the character and competence of the job candidate. Do not review contracts in closed session. While many want to keep these details confidential, all public contracts will become public, and there needs to be transparency in the discussion when public funds are being spent. If you want to discuss multiple bidders, you can refer to them by bidder A, bidder B, etc. Do not use a closed session to avoid having difficult or unflattering discussions. Violating closed meetings are a Class B misdemeanor. If you participate in a closed session, everyone needs to understand that the things discussed are confidential and not to be repeated. If you choose to enter a closed session, a motion must be made in the board meeting to close the session. For example, I move that we close the board meeting to discuss the character and competence of individual. Or, I move that we close the board meeting for reasons listed in Utah Code 52-4-204. You then take a vote, roll call style, where each name and their vote is stated one at a time. State who is participating in the meeting. The board can invite others to take part in some or all of the closed session. After the roll call vote, stop your regular meeting recording. The closed session is recorded separately. Closed session recordings and minutes are a protected record under the law and should only be given to anyone under a judge's order. You cannot take any board action in a closed meeting. You will need to end your closed session, restart the recorder for your open session, and then make any possible motions from the session in the open portion of your meeting. What if you make a mistake? If an error was made in posting the agenda, hold your meeting, but omit the action item portion. If the action item portions are urgent, you can take a vote, but then you will need to re-vote in the next properly noticed board meeting. In most situations, doing it over again correctly will solve the problem, but if it happens repeatedly, it will raise red flags, so avoid it if possible. Board minutes do not need to be a transcription of everything that occurred. They should, however, be complete enough for someone to understand the substance of the discussion. Minutes need to include the names of everyone in attendance, including the public, and anyone who speaks needs to be identified by name. Any votes need to be recorded by name. You cannot write unanimous. Any additional information a board member requests to be included should be added if it is what occurred. For instance, if a presentation was given, the presentation could be attached to the minutes for reference. Minutes must be posted within 30 days and available to the public through the PMN within 3 days after approval. Audio recordings must be uploaded to the PMN within 3 business days. Make sure you document any trainings that are included as part of a board meeting. By uploading your agenda, minutes, and recordings to the PMN, you have a great board document storage plan that will endure after board member turnover. The only thing you will need to keep track of is your closed session recordings. The PMN records when documents are uploaded, so state agencies can retroactively monitor if you are in compliance. While this training provides an overview, it is strongly recommended that you read the Open and Public Meetings Act yourself at Utah Code 52-4, because board members are individually responsible that their behavior is in compliance with the law. We hope this open meeting training was helpful, and we wish you all the best in governing your school. This training was brought to you by a grant from the Utah State Charter School Board.